Since being elected, was able to bring high-tech, clean tech, and healthcare jobs to our region. That's really because of the policies that we have put together in Congress. I fought for federal investments to support service and outreach for homeless populations, but I know we have to do more to improve housing affordability, safe streets, and transition our unhoused neighbors into stable housing. I worked hard to improve public transportation and expand transit. I stood up to attacks on our democratic institutions and fought to protect women's rights, access to healthcare, and protection for the environment. I firmly believe we need leadership that brings people together to get things done that improve our community. I'm committed to continue providing this kind of leadership on your behalf. And I'm a mother, and more importantly, now I'm a grandmother. And I look to my grandchildren as touchstones to the future. Anna and Robbie are those two, and I want not only for them to be successful, but every Anna and Robbie in every neighborhood in this country. So with that, I just have to tell you, I love the Sacramento region, and I want to continue representing Sacramento's values in Congress.
And so now we will go to Mr. Fremgen for 3 minutes, please.
I have to start with a clarification that I give to all of my students, which is it is Fremgen, not Fremgen. It's an extra credit question in the first couple weeks of the semester because I force it on them every year. So my name is Jimmy Fremgen. I'm excited to be here with you all. You're all familiar faces to me for various reasons, and I actually grew up in the newsroom of the Santa Rosa Press-Democrat, so having the opportunity to participate in this process is a special treat for me. I think my dad is probably more excited about it than I am, but I am a teacher here in Sacramento who works a second job as a bartender in Midtown. I formerly worked for Congressman Elijah Cummings. I was an investigator for the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And when I was with Mr. Cummings, I worked on education policy, gun violence prevention, foreign affairs, and transportation and infrastructure issues. In 2016, when I returned from DC to California, I went and worked for the state legislature and was one of the staffers in charge of creating the regulated cannabis system. I'm really involved in my community. I am the chair of the board of the United Core Alliance, which is a social justice oriented nonprofit that's oriented around supporting victims of the war on drugs, specifically individuals of color that are breaking into the cannabis industry and those that have low-level cannabis crimes from that war on drugs. I'm active with YXP, Youth Explosion in Oak Park, and handing out goods and services there, medication, basic food, clothing, things like that. And during the pandemic, I helped to create a pipeline for people experiencing homelessness or transitioning out of homelessness into full-time career jobs in the hospitality industry using my connections from the bar side of my world. I'm running because I believe that our time is limited. We saw that during the pandemic, that we all had to face this very abrupt existential crisis. We saw homelessness increase in its severity. We're seeing climate change accelerate. Having grown up in Santa Rosa, I've seen the town that I grew up in struck by wildfire more than 3 times. The neighborhood that I grew up in is gone now. And we see that climate change is accelerating and that it's time to take new and aggressive action to deal with it. So I want to make the most of my time. I grew up with a very serious heart condition. I'm on my 4th pacemaker defibrillator. I lost my mom when I was 19. She was 45. And that's actually something that connected me with the Congresswoman when I interned on her staff. I know that one of the things that motivates her is to honor the legacy of her husband. And that was something that I was really touched by and something that I talked to Julietti about quite a bit. And that's something that motivates me as well with my mother, is wanting to live up to the legacy of somebody that really inspires you. So I wanted to see government when I went to DC. I had the opportunity to leave my classroom, to have that brief internship with the Congresswoman, and then to go and work for Mr. Cummings. And I saw in working for Mr. Cummings that he was really unique in the way that he provided access to his community, but also in his moral clarity and how he really honed in on what he wanted to do. 10 seconds.
Yeah, so I think, why don't we begin the questions? It was, thank you both for your opening statements. We'll begin with the questions. And why don't we start with our colleague, Josh Golke.
Hi, I'm Josh Golke. I'm the Deputy Opinion Editor. I just was wondering, I wanted to ask both of you about the recent mass shooting in Sacramento and some of the other violent crimes we've had recently, as well as just the general uptick in violent crime across the board. California obviously has done a whole lot of what it can do on gun violence, and Congress has done very little of what it could do. The Biden administration has nominated an ATF director and proposed some regulations on ghost guns, but there are really big things like background checks that are overwhelmingly popular that just haven't really gone anywhere in Congress, and a lot of that is because of the Senate, obviously. But I'm wondering what each of you thinks Congress can do here. Is there anything you could do as a member of Congress and that the body can do to make Sacramento and the rest of the country safer from this kind of violence? And we've been going in alphabetical order, so we can start with Jimmy on this question.
There's a lot of things that Congress can do. When I worked on committee staff, I saw the investigatory power that committees have to actually launch specific investigations into linchpin issues that can unlock larger change. That's one of the things that I have experience doing on Capitol Hill. And when I worked for Mr. Cummings, I actually oversaw the recruitment for the first bipartisan anti-gun trafficking bill after the Newtown tragedy. And that bill was bipartisan because there is a coalition around the idea that there are things that we can get done if we can push past what the NRA and what the big division in our country has said that we can't do with guns, right? So we have no federal gun trafficking policy. We have no federal law that prevents people from buying a gun in Nevada and bringing it to California to commit a crime. We have no major policy that prevents somebody from knowingly purchasing a firearm for somebody that is going to commit a crime with that firearm, handing it to them, and then just sitting back and letting nothing happen when they commit that crime. If they get caught, and they rarely do, the only penalty for that is lying on a federal form, and it almost never gets prosecuted. So there are things that we can all agree need to be stepped up in terms of enforcement. Congress can continue doing that. Those are things that we should be doing legislatively. But without the benefit of legislation, Congress should be actively pursuing investigations. They should be actively holding manufacturers to account, distributors to account. We should be closing the boyfriend loophole, which allows people that are unmarried but in domestic violence environments to get a hold of firearms and use them against their loved ones. This year at the school that I teach at, which is Leroy Green Academy in Natomas, one of our students was the victim of domestic violence, was one of the young women that was murdered by her father in the church shooting. And her father was able to get a firearm despite the fact that we have these gun laws. And he was able to get it because of a lot of the inadequacies that we have in federal firearms policy. So I want to bring attention to those things. I want to talk about my personal experience dealing with gun violence and provide a path towards getting to those things, whether it's legislatively, whether it's investigations or otherwise.
Thanks, Congresswoman.
Yes, well, let me just say that I agree with Jimmy on these issues because it's been very frustrating, as you know. And I remember 2012 and when we had those 4 kindergartners killed, and I listened, and Elijah Cummings was always my hero. He always took the right action. He investigated. He was an oversight at that time. Believe me, we have been doing the same thing and passing things in Congress, in the House. Bipartisan bills, maybe 10 of the other side, but we've been passing them. It's very frustrating. And we've now, once again, President Biden was, I think, once again going to introduce another gun bill, which we will look at. And I believe it's the same thing that we've done with the bipartisan background checks. We're going to try to put anything about ghost guns in there. And also an added aspect of this too is to have something in there about community interventions also, because I think that's really clearly something that we have to have in there. We really feel that there has to be something there about what we can do as far as helping the police too. So that is a bigger package in a sense of trying to be very inclusive. And I feel very frustrated myself because I met with some domestic abuse organizations, and the fact that domestic violence and guns are so closely related are just unbelievable. My colleagues in the House understand too, it's not just the mass shootings, it's the shootings that go on every day in almost every neighborhood. My colleague in Chicago, who has, really tough gun laws like we do too, says that they don't pay attention to the shootings that occur in all the neighborhoods. That is wrong. That is wrong. And I really believe that within Sacramento itself, we need to be very intentional about some of the problems regarding guns. And the fact that there are young people who pick up a gun because that's what they do, right? And the fact is that we already know that there are some real concerns about the gang activity, which for a while people were sort of just thinking that it had gone away. It's not gone away. And now more than ever, it has come back. And so I really feel that the community itself has to figure out how we get together here in a very intentional way. It's not just, it's guns, and guns provide the means, but it's also the fact that young people don't have a place to go. They feel hopeless. And I really feel that we need to get at the very grassroots level and try to really understand why this is happening. The COVID problem obviously exacerbated this, as it did everything else, homelessness, gun violence, and everything else. I do not really believe that we can solve it in a day or a week or a year, but we're still working on it. And I really feel that it will take people to stand up, particularly the community that are the sportsmen, right? They understand gun safety. And I like them to stand up with us. Some of them have, but understanding that they are giving, a lot of people are giving them a bad reputation. And it's time for all of us to work together.
Thank you, Congresswoman. So staying on the subject of guns, the issue that you both have mentioned is more interventions for young people. So what could either one of you do from Congress to make that more of a reality in Sacramento, to have the federal government play a role in intervening with, say, for example, some of the suspects who are incarcerated right now for the K Street shooting? What could Congress do that it isn't doing right now to play more of a role in that? And if, Congresswoman, if you could start with that one, please.
Well, I really believe that some of this is actually, yes, it's belongs in Department of Justice. And some of it also is the fact that locally itself too, we have varying degrees of gun laws to a certain degree, and varying degrees of, I would say, purposeful interventions, so to speak. And I really feel that what we can do is in the federal level is really absolutely work with the law enforcement, work with the community groups, and try to engage them in a way where we get a particular kind of funding that they will need. They are the experts on, they've been there before. What do we need? Not just throwing money at this, but what do we need? Everybody wants, for instance, to be safe. Everybody wants to be safe. And so law enforcement is really very important. Law enforcement, though, has a concern because if, with mental health issues and all, they are not equipped to handle that at all. And a lot of the time it's how you approach people that is really critical. I just really feel that what we need to do at very top, and this is, the administration and those of us in Congress, to really say this is not right at all. We have to intervene in some way to help the children. It's going to be difficult when somebody gets a little older, but the children itself, and that starts in the schools. It starts in the schools. And I know people say, oh yeah, right. But we have to be very intentional about how we actually direct our funding and perhaps just really say, you know, put some guardrails on what do we really want to do with it, and make sure that the funding is attached to some sort of opportunity for people to work together. Because as you know, if we work in silos, nothing ever gets done. We work together and we listen to each other and we hear each other's viewpoints. Eventually, it may not be perfect, but honestly, we've made some progress in that way.
Mr. Fremgen.
So earlier this year, I overheard a conversation between two of my students. They were just talking to each other. They didn't know I was listening, and they usually pretend like I'm not there in the room anyway. And they were discussing the difference between what it feels like to get shot versus what it feels like to get stabbed. And they were comparing notes versus people in their personal families. And last month when we had the shooting, I came into school. I almost took the day off because I had spent the day down with some of the families at the scene. And I decided to come to school because I wanted to talk to my kids about the fact that I loved them and that they mattered. And so I went in and I gave them the speech, and initially they all rolled their eyes, but by the end, one of the kids came up to me and he said, "Mr. Fremgen, you're the first adult man that's ever told me that he loves me." And another girl said, "That was my uncle." So we talk about it in sweeping policies at the federal level. We talk about how we can't get anything done because of the NRA and because of Congress and because of this. I know kids that are being affected by our inability to get things done, and I teach them and I work with them every day. Those kids need the help. And so you can get in front of it, and I agree with the Congresswoman to some degree in terms of addressing it with mentoring and addressing it with support and addressing it with other pipelines and other pathways. At our school last week, we hosted a career and cultural seminar where we brought in dozens of mentors from the career world to help our kids learn that school matters, that they should be engaged, that there's a path for them after high school, that the things in front of them are not the only things that are going to matter for them forever. And we saw a big uptick in buy-in. Coming back on Monday was a big deal for us because these kids were all excited to go to school again. I shouldn't say all of them. Some of them were excited to go to school again. So it's the front loading of that, addressing the trauma, addressing the support, addressing the psychological effects. I had to refer one of my students yesterday to the school psychologist because she lost her friend in Sumiyamura, and her grades have taken a dive because she thinks every day about her friend and she can't focus on school. And then we need to get engaged with support groups in the community. So one of the first things I decided to do when I decided to run was I sat down with one of the gentlemen that runs Advanced Peace in Sacramento, which is an organization that focuses on taking people that have left the gang lifestyle, that have seen that they want to change their community, want to prevent other people from going into it. And their saying is that they can't stop the first bullet, but they can stop the second. And so going in to say that there shouldn't be retribution and we shouldn't have this endless chain, and pouring federal money into programs that are not going to just direct people into the criminal justice system, but are going to direct people into support services where they can get psychological help, where they can get career help, where they can focus on things that will actually make their personal outcomes better and make the outcomes for their families better. Because otherwise, it's really easy to go down that path that other people have tread before you. It's really easy to go down that path that you might hear about in lyrics or from friends or from relatives that have been down there. You have to recognize that not everybody is surrounded by good influences, but when we put more of those good influences around those kids and around those people that are struggling, they want that opportunity. They want that outstretched hand. We just have to be a part of extending it out to them and funding it and making it more effective.
So I have a question. My name is Robin Epley. I'm an opinion columnist. I mostly cover the county of Sacramento, but
It's really hard to hear you, Robin.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this any better? I'll speak up a little bit.
That's better. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Robin. I'm an opinion columnist. I mostly cover the county of Sacramento. And I wanted to ask you, President Biden, recently announced that it would stop using the pretext of COVID to bar asylum seekers from the country under Title 42, which was a policy started by Donald Trump. That has caused some blowback from Congress, including an impasse on supplemental COVID funding. So I would like to ask each of you, did Biden make the right call? And let's start with Jimmy this time.
No, I don't think that he did. I think that under no circumstances should this country, which was created as a place to provide safe harbor for people that were facing prosecution and persecution in their own countries, from dangerous environments at home, from the dangerous environments that we know exist in Central America and South America, people that are coming to those countries from other parts of the world to transit up across our border, people that are purely seeking a better life for themselves. Those people should not be penalized for political reasons. And I know that members of Congress, and I believe the Congresswoman was one of them, went to the border and saw the result of our failed immigration policies when we were putting kids into cages and when we were separating families. And we have consistently, over the last several years, failed those families that come to the United States that have heard the promise that we deliver in our classroom, saying that we can be this place of prosperity, that we can be this opportunity, we can be this place of safety. They hear that message, they come here, they want it, and then they get to our border and that they hear, no, just kidding, you were lied to. I think it's a mistake. I think there are other ways to do it.
I'm so sorry. I want to interrupt. Title 42 barred immigrants from entering the country under the pretext of COVID,
Right.
which was started during the Trump administration. The Biden administration has voted to end that and to let them in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's
Yeah.
fine. I'm think I'm probably hard to hear.
Yeah.
So do you support ending Title 42? Because some congressional Democrats have not supported and said COVID is still an issue that should be considered.
Yeah, I apologize. I totally misheard the question. It was a little garbled.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, no, COVID continues to be a problem around the world. Just because we have access to the finest medicines on the planet, just because we have access to some of the finest hospital care on the planet, does not mean that it continues to exist in other countries around the world. And if people are concerned that they are not receiving care, that they are not going to be able to provide for their families, that they're not going to survive in their home countries because of the existence and the persistence of COVID, and they're drawn to the United States for those reasons, I believe that we should find a way to help those families.
Congresswoman Matsui.
I certainly, I call for the end of Title 42 expulsions. I think it's inhumane. It doesn't go along with who we are as a country. And yes, I've been to the border. I saw the inhumane conditions when we were in Texas and during the Trump administration. I think that what we have to do is not only end this, but make sure that we are much more humane about how we bring in people. That means on the conditions, the healthcare part of it, to make sure that they're in good health, that they have places to go, they can connect up with people. But I just believe that we should not continue with this Title 42 expulsions, and I really believe we have to end it.
I can jump in here with a question.
Go ahead, Hannah.
Okay, I'm Hannah Holzer, Opinion Assistant, and can you both hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna switch gears to talk about climate change. Despite the undeniable urgency required and almost daily release of credible studies detailing the looming threat of climate catastrophe, partisan gridlock between the parties and even among Democrats is largely responsible for sinking President Biden's climate agenda. The U.S.
Oh,
I think you're frozen.
Oh, I froze. Oh no, am I back? Shoot. Am I back?
you're back.
Okay. I'll just go on and get to the question. If elected, how would you break through this legacy of inaction and overcome the opposition throughout Capitol Hill to give voters some hope that we can make the necessary changes before it's too late? And Congresswoman, I'll start with you.
I am really a climate warrior. I really feel that this is, as everybody says, an existential threat to this world and to our children. I think the children are the ones who really got it, the young people. And I think it's up to every single one of us to fight as much as we can. I've taken on every single thing when we could possibly do it, whether it was Trump administration trying to lower raise the gas emissions, or whether it was trying to get the waiver waived off and all of this, but we fought that on the regulations. And now we're looking at this, realizing that we have to do absolutely everything, whether it's technology, whether it's the utilities, whether it's natural solutions, because everything is involved in this. Food insecurity is involved in this, so that means really national security as far as the rest of the world. And so to me, we're doing every single thing. I am co-chair of something called the Sustainable Energy Environment Caucus. And we are very, very authentic and intentional about some of the legislation that we move forward. And obviously, we can't get a big bill, but we can get smaller type of bills as we move forward. And I think that's really very important. What we're beginning to find now is because of the climate disasters, the storms that have been happening, particularly in the Midwest, the wildfires in California, and this extreme weather events, I think that a lot of the people are now thinking, Republican especially, that maybe something is happening. Now, they want to wait maybe to move forward. We can't wait. We know we cannot wait. And so as much as possible, we are forcing them to look at this, which I think is really very important. And interesting, most of their kids are on the same page too. I will use everything I possibly can because it impacts everything that we do. You know, whatever, you know, I look at the fact that when we had the wildfires, you know, we had horrible air, right? So we want to make sure that the children in the schools have cleaner air and better energy environment. And we just try to do these things in a way that really does move the needle. Electrification, I think that is something that's really moving forward. Even the auto industries in this country are really looking. They understand that the competition is going to come from China and Germany and all over, so they have to get on. They're getting on now to understanding that we have to move to ensure that we have more electric vehicles, charging stations, things like that. Also tax credits for those people, those companies that really move ahead. And I just, there is a lot happening. And what's going on now too is that business is beginning to realize that they see the future and they know that they have to start taking steps, and they have, in order to plan for their future too. And so we can't give up. We absolutely can't give up, and I don't intend to, and my colleagues don't intend to either. And as we move along, I think we're going to eventually have more and more support that will move us forward because we have to. We have to.
Thank you. And Mr. Fremgen, right? Fremgen?
Very good, Hannah.
Okay.
It's not as easy as some people think. Well, I think the first thing, getting to the impasse in Congress, the clear culprit of the impasse in Congress is the persistence of the filibuster. If we did not have the filibuster, we would not have the senator from West Virginia holding up climate change strictly because he wants to see more coal included. And so we need more forceful advocacy to end the filibuster. But that's a Senate issue. That's not a House issue. I teach government. I won't drill into on that too much, but it's something that is fundamental to the way that our Congress is structured, and it needs to be removed. In terms of moving the needle on climate change, I think one of the first things that we need to do is remove the overwhelming influence that companies that contribute to climate change have in our federal decision-making process. I've made a pledge to not take any money from climate change companies, from companies that contribute to climate change. That includes PG&E, that includes Edison, that includes companies across the country. I would invite the Congresswoman to join me in that pledge, because I think, especially as somebody that sits on energy and commerce, and when you are charged with regulating the same companies that are contributing drastically to our climate change crisis, you can send a really strong message to them saying that your money's not good here, that we are not interested in your perspective, or not necessarily in your perspective, but in your influence in our elections, because we want to make policy for people that are being affected by climate change. And we want to do it without your money in our pockets. And as somebody who, like I said before, as somebody who grew up in Santa Rosa in a neighborhood that got burned down, as somebody who lives in Sacramento in a city that has some of the worst air quality in the country as a result of climate change, as a result of wildfires that are driven by forests that are too dry, as a result of PG&E's negligence leading to wildfires that sweep through forests that are too dry, as a result of the lack of corporate oversight and the lack of intention looking over those companies to make sure that they are in fact living up to their promises, or that we are holding their feet to the fire, we are ending up with a worse picture for climate change. We have a very small window We're lucky in this country to have exceptional scientists. We're lucky in this planet to have exceptional climate scientists that tell us that we need to decrease the warming on this planet by more than 2 degrees centigrade by 2030. That's 8 years. That's not a lot of time. And we know how we can do it, but we need to start by making sure that those companies are being held accountable, that we're not allowing them to continue to pump their money into our elections, to send people to Congress, to send people like Joe Manchin to the floor of the House and stand in the way of preventing existential crisis without fundamentally changing the way that we do politics and the way that we do climate policy. We are not going to have an opportunity to continue to have the same kind of living experience that we have. And I've said, people say, well, what are your 3 main issues? You have to boil everything you believe down to 3 main issues. And I give them homelessness, healthcare, and banning corporate contributions to politicians. But I say that all of that is fundamentally sitting on a bedrock of climate change, because without addressing climate change, without framing all of those decisions through the lens of what are we going to do about climate change, none of that is going to matter. I'm from a generation of people who are wondering if they should have children because we don't know if climate change is going to prevent them from having a full and healthy life. That's not a choice that my parents had to make. That's not a choice that my grandparents had to make. But that's a choice that every millennial and every Gen Z person I know is considering when they think about bringing a child into this world. And I don't think that that's okay. Congress can and should do more to prevent it. And the Congresswoman's colleagues on energy and commerce should be leading the way.
Thank you. Congresswoman, I wanted to give you the opportunity to respond. And I also wanted to ask whether you have taken money from PG&E or any of the oil and gas companies.
Well, I can't say that. I probably have taken from some utilities, but not oil and gas. But, you have to understand that I don't pay attention to this at all. That's why I can't give you an accounting of this here. What I do on energy and commerce is for the people. And I think that my record says it all. I believe that our municipal utility that we have in Sacramento is doing all the right things. And I make sure that that utility goes before Congress and we talk about what they're doing, which is great. Because honestly, we could just judge people on the fundraising. But for me, that to me is not the criteria at all. I don't go out there and raise millions and millions of dollars. I'm not that way at all. I look at the policy. I see how it impacts Sacramento in a positive manner. My 3 issues are really healthcare, climate, and technology. Because if you look forward, as I do, healthcare impacts economy, and climate impacts not only the economy, but healthcare, public health. It also impacts everything we do as far as transportation. It impacts the air that we breathe. And there is a holistic solution to this. Ultimately, the utilities have to be a part of this. And they have to be understanding that they have goals to get their goals. And what SMUD says 2030 carbon free, that's fabulous. They're really pushing everybody else to do this. That's what I'm doing, pushing everybody else to reach these goals so that we can move ahead. And I'm passionate about this. I know how important it is to really impact all the utilities and impact the fossil fuel industry itself. I'm not sure where they're going to be going. I don't believe that when I see an advertisement on TV, I wonder, because I'm not sure they can change right away. I'm sure they can't, but we'll see what happens there. But as far as Manchin, Senator Manchin, I would love to do something about the filibuster. But I'm not a senator and I can't do that. I'm hoping that he will at least we can at least talk with him to move him to a place where we get a piece of what we want to move climate forward. We've done an awful lot with electrification. We've done an awful lot as trying to get tax credits. But if we can do more, I'm willing to work with him to do more. And after all, the problem we have is that we don't elect him. The people in West Virginia elect him. And most of us talk with him, but he's not gonna change his mind necessarily unless he feels that it's gonna advantage his constituents.
So Hannah, if I could just respond real quick. While the Congresswoman was talking, I actually did pull up her fundraising numbers for this quarter. And I know that she says she doesn't pay attention to it, and I understand. The Congresswoman took $5,000 from PG&E to her leadership PAC in the last cycle. And in this cycle specifically, and this is on opensecrets.org, which is collated from Federal Election Commission numbers, $19,000 from electrical utilities in this cycle alone. And the reason I point that out is not to wrap the Congresswoman's knuckles. It's that I'm running with no money from corporations at all. The Bee, when they wrote the profile about this race, highlighted that I had no chance because I didn't have the ability to raise money from big corporations. And if I could take $19,000 today, it could fundamentally change this race. But I've made a choice not to do that because I want to do this the right way. The Congresswoman has the opportunity to say that there are certain industries she won't accept money from. She has the money in her race already. She has the money on hand right now. I don't think she needs the $2 million that she has in her bank account to beat me when she's outraising me more than 20 to 1. And so I would invite her to give that money back, or to donate it to our community, or to donate it to some sort of green living opportunities or sustainability opportunities in our community, because I don't think she's going to need it to run a campaign against me. But that money does exist, and it is in her campaign account.
Congressman, did you want to respond?
This is very much a politically motivated conversation right now. And I have to tell you, I had no idea what was in my accounts. And to have Mr. Fremgen go into my accounts and figure that out, good for him. But I'm not going to do that with him. And I will say also that he may go in and look at certain givers, but I have a lot of small givers and people in Sacramento who really believe that I have done a great job in Sacramento. And money has never been something that I have felt was so important to my election and my and what I do in Congress.
Mr. Fremgen, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You're you are a very accomplished person. Why did you decide to run for Congress as opposed to running for city council or running for something here closer to home? What made you decide to run for Congress?
That's a good question. That's actually the question my brother asked me when I told him I was going to run. And the answer for that is that this is the job that I feel that I can do the most good in right away. This is the job that I feel I've received the most training for. I have never worked for a city council member. I have never worked for a school board member. Do I believe that I could learn how to do those jobs? Absolutely. And I think that there are people in this community that are working really hard to do a good job in those positions. I have worked for Congresswoman Matsui. I've worked for Senator Tom Harkin. I've worked for Congressman Elijah Cummings. I've worked for some of the best minds and around the best minds in Congress. I have seen people that have invested in their community, who have demonstrated what community-focused representation looks like. And I have worked for people that are more focused on Washington than they are on Sacramento. Or I shouldn't say on Sacramento, because I've worked for a number of different members in different districts who are more focused on Washington than they are on their districts at home. The reason that I'm running for Congress is because when I lost my job and my business in the same week during the pandemic, I went looking for the same kinds of support that we provided when I worked for Congressman Cummings' office during the recession. I went looking for opportunities for small business owners, for people like myself, because I had decided I was done with politics. I was over it. I was burned out. I was tired of the churn. I was tired of the fundraising. I was tired of people telling me that they were going to do one thing and then doing something else when it came time to it. And so I said, I'm going to open a small business. And I went and I did that, and I got crushed by the pandemic. I was working at a bar as my second job so I could get by and so I could pay my rent while I was pursuing that dream. And I lost my job. And I looked around at all the other people that I knew in the service industry that suddenly had no idea how they were going to pay their rent, had no idea how that they were going to get their health care, had no idea how they were going to make it by, didn't have the kinds of savings to pull from. And I went looking for resources to help those people, and I didn't see them. If I had been in office during the pandemic, I would have, and I've laid this out, and I actually put this up on my website today, I would have provided direct workshops over Zoom, because we all got really good at doing Zoom, to provide resources to small businesses, people that were struggling. If you needed help with a PPP loan, we would have had somebody from my staff directly addressing those concerns and walking you through the process of how to do it, because that's what casework is. If you were having a hard time staying in your home, I would have been able to direct you to resources, maybe not at the federal level, but at the state level. We would have had town halls and workshops all throughout the pandemic to directly provide resources to people that were struggling, and we didn't. And as a result, yes.
I would just say that you don't know what we've done, but my staff and I were very much involved. We talked with everybody. We knew the pandemic inundated everybody. And, to say that my staff or I didn't do the work is unbelievable. We had a pandemic. People were dying. We were trying to save people as well as save their businesses, keep them in their homes. It was like drinking out of a fire hose, and we did it. We didn't do everybody because we couldn't, because we ran out of money in some cases, but we try to do everything we possibly can. And for you to say that you couldn't get the help, honestly, it's unbelievable, because we were there 24/7.
Respectfully, Congresswoman, I know that congressional staff works really hard. I know that. I know that congressional staff live and die and bleed for their district. What I'm saying is that I was one of those people in this district that needed help. And when I called, and when I went to the website, and when I left a message with your office, I didn't get a call back. And so,
Congressman, do you want to respond?
Oh, I can't respond to that. I'm not, I don't know at all. I mean, that's not what everybody else says. And I'll tell you that right now. I think we have been very, very responsive.
and I want to be clear, this isn't a personal attack on the Congresswoman. This is a different perspective on how you can structure an office. I have, and I put it out today, and I will drop it into the chat here for you. I have an accessibility and outreach plan that's modeled on the work that I did with Mr. Cummings, that I've seen other offices do, that is available on my website, where you can see the direct outreach that I would do. And if the worst thing that comes out of this run, or I should say, if the best thing that comes out of this run in the time that I've spent doing this is that some of these things get incorporated into outreach in our community, that will be a victory. Because it's not about slamming or embarrassing the Congresswoman at all. It's about making better outcomes in our community. Because the Congresswoman and I agree on the vast majority of things. I am not naive to that. But on several key points, I have a different vision for how I would do this job. I have a different plan for how I would do this job, and I'm making it available so that people can make that decision for themselves.
Congressman, asking you a question. Again, you've had a very decorated career. You've been in Washington for a very long time. What sort of motivates you to run again and continue doing the work when your legacy is secure now and people know who you are and what you've stood for? Why do it again?
I'm not doing this for legacy, Marcus. I'm doing this because I love Sacramento. And I feel like there is much more to do yet. What I've done, particularly with the bigger issues of flood protection and healthcare and transit and transportation and bringing communities together. Those are big issues that reach down into the communities. Now, Mr. Fremgen, I believe, is a community organizer in a sense. He tries to put things together, and I compliment you for doing that. We need that at the local level. I mean, when I get together with the mayor or the board of supervisors, they're doing that, and they are really doing a job that needs to get done. And the thing is about being a member of Congress, you represent the people in your district, but you also make policy for the whole country. And so what I'm trying to do, and other members are trying to do also, is look at not only the big picture, but the little picture too, but how it impacts our neighbors. And I really feel that in order to be a good member of Congress, you have to do that. And I know how to do that. And, you know, I had to learn how to do that. I mean, my late husband did it for a long time. And I had to learn how to do it. And I learned how to do it. But I would say you bring up Elijah an awful lot. Elijah was my hero. Elijah was something who was also from Baltimore. He had a huge impact there. I really worked with him very well because he was somebody who listened really well too. And Elijah was not there during the pandemic either. I think if he would have been, it would have been better, but he wasn't there. Every member of Congress, and I'm not being defensive about this, threw themselves into this to really save and help their constituents, despite many times when we had differences of opinion. We still did it. And we may not have done it perfectly, but we tried very, very hard. And we've done right now, we've gotten through this. We've learned an awful lot. We are prepared now so that we won't, hopefully, not have this happen again. We want to make sure that we pass another COVID bill so we can make sure that we can produce the vaccines and make sure we're prepared with all the PPEs and make sure we understand how to help businesses. This was an incredible time, an incredible time. But, you know, we got through this and we're probably stronger than ever, but we never want to repeat this again. And I'm hoping that we can come together and realize we're much better working together than trying to figure out what we didn't do. That bothers us a great deal anyway. So we're trying to remedy that. But what we didn't do, we're trying to resolve. And what we're trying to do now is to ensure that we can move forward in a way where we can create the new types of jobs for the region and for the country. And the fact is that we are in a new place now with climate and clean energy. We can actually reach our goals if we're all in this together. And everything has to be done. And so whether it's for the school children, whether it's for business, whether it's for the utilities, whether it's for the healthcare, everybody has to take a piece of this and know that they're going to have to change the way they do their business. And this is what the pandemic has done for all of us.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do think there is something inherent in Marcus's question, Representative Matsui, that Jimmy is representative of a younger wave of would-be lawmakers, and you yourself are approaching 80. You've been in this position since 2005.
I'm not 80 yet, you know.
Not yet. But your late husband was in the position since 1979. You yourself since 2005. That's
I think
you're frozen. Generation.
Oh, Robin, you froze for just a second. Could you back up maybe a few sentences?
Sure. I'm sorry. I was just saying that Matsui has held this district seat since 1979. Is there a point at which you would consider stepping aside for a younger generation of lawmakers, or do you feel that time is not ripe yet?
Well, you know, I'll tell you right now, I'm running, so I'm not ready to step aside right now. And I feel there will be someone coming along who is going to be qualified to take the reins. I just really feel that I have the energy and the enthusiasm and the knowledge and the expertise and the passion to keep doing this. And I just really feel that just because you hit a certain age doesn't mean that you have to leave the scene. Mm-hmm. I think that is something that is unfortunate if people are believing that that is important. I don't believe it is, because I really feel that if you have the passion, the energy, the intellect to move and do good things, you know, you should stay in the game.
Jimmy, I don't want to leave you out of this. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the Congresswoman is best positioned to talk about her legacy and the things that she has accomplished and would like to accomplish. I did want to respond. She said, I talk about Elijah Cummings a lot, and that's true. Other than my father, he's probably the most influential man I've ever had in my life. And I talk about my dad a lot too. And so I don't think that talking about somebody that influenced your life and helped you become who you are is a problem. I'm proud of the fact that I worked for Congressman Cummings, but I'm proud of my dad. Somebody asked me, why do you go by Jimmy instead of James? Jimmy's a nickname. Why don't you go by James? It's more formal. The reason is that when my mom died, my dad stood up. He was working nights at the newspaper. He all of a sudden was not expecting to become a single father. He had a daughter that was 14, a son that was 17, and another son that was about to go off to college. And my dad went into work and he said, I'm never working nights again. And you can fire me if you want to. And he put himself on the line. And so one day my dad heard me go by Jim or James. And he said, I really always liked that you go by Jimmy. And so I said, okay, I'll do that and I'll honor you with that. And so I don't think there's a problem with honoring the people that made you who you are and building upon what they taught you and going forward and trying to make things better. I think that Congressman Cummings would be proud of me because he really believed in our democracy. He talked about the things that we would do when he was talking to Michael Cohen. He said, when we're dancing with the angels, they will ask us, what did we do to protect our democracy? This isn't about Congresswoman Matsui. This isn't about me. This is about the people that live in this district having an opportunity to make a choice. I keep this note, and I know the Congresswoman says she doesn't pay attention to her fundraising, but I have to spend an inordinate amount of my time doing fundraising to compete. And so I keep this note on my desk. This is from a woman named Norma. I know you can't read it because she has really faint handwriting, but she was 78. And I called her and I said, you can donate on my website. I would really love it. And she said, oh my God, I would love to donate to you, but I don't do computers. And I kind of chuckled and I said, okay, well, I'll send you an envelope with a stamped envelope. And she wrote to me and she said, I hope that you are successful. I hope that you are able to do well. I know that there are a lot of people up against you and a lot of powerful allies, but I believe that we should have a choice. And so I have this on my desk because I think that's really cool. And that's what I tell my students every day. It's about having a choice. It's not about making it overtly political. It's not about making it nasty. It's not about making it personal. It's about looking at the facts. It's about looking at the things that your representatives have done and they haven't done. It's about looking at the people that they've taken money from and the people they haven't taken money from. It's about looking at the things that they want to do on the issues that affect you and the things that they're not focused on and making a decision for yourself. And so that's what I'm offering here. And that's what I'm excited to pursue in this process.
Before we wrap up, Congresswoman, did you want to make a last word before we call it a day?
No, I just want to say that I understand Jimmy's enthusiasm for being a member of Congress. I was enthusiastic also, but enthusiasm is not the only thing at all. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm critical of all of Elijah Cummings. He was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. He was everybody's hero. And I think we take people in our lives and we do feel there are certain ones that we can really look to. And Elijah was certainly one of the members of Congress, along with John Lewis and others. And so I really feel that I feel like I really feel that I have done a lot for Sacramento. And I'm not going to go chapter and verse. I think you can look that up, like Jimmy looked up the campaign. I've done a lot, and I know that I could do more. I love Sacramento. I want to protect it. I want to make sure they have every advantage possible. I fight for Sacramento on Congress all the time because it's a place that not only reveres its past, loves its present, but really looks forward to the future. And I really feel the future is going to be a new place. And if we do it right, we're going to be able to conquer and be able to get through the climate change and use the new technologies to do that too. Healthcare that's going to be more universal, which has always been my goal. And I just feel that this is what I want to do. And that is, I'm I'm not staying in Congress because I like the title. No, I mean, I'm staying in Congress because I have a lot more that I want to do. Well, thank you
Jimmy,
very
last
much.
word. Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you very much.
Of course,
Last week-
I have a last word, and then when we're done with the interview part, I have a couple questions about process. But in
Sure, if
terms,
you can get the last word quickly, then we can do the call, because we're almost at the top of the hour.
of course. So in terms of a last word, I really, we talked about legacy a lot today. I am at the beginning of my legacy. I believe that we should have an opportunity to build something, that we should be looking at current issues with a current set of standards, with a current set of skills. I grew up with Facebook. I grew up on the internet. I grew up with people buying and selling my data and taking advantage of it. And that's the new part of this new gilded era that we're in. That's where people are making their money. That's where people are exploiting Americans, right? I grew up watching homelessness get worse. And I live in Midtown, and I have a guy that used to sleep underneath my windowsill because it was the only place that he could stay dry. And so I went out and I was with my community asking them what they needed, right? I believe in being engaged. I believe in being involved. I believe in listening. That's why I provided this accessibility plan. That's why I have a plan to address homelessness on my website. I believe in going out and being excited, chasing things. It's not just about enthusiasm, Congresswoman. I totally agree. And I think there are members of Congress that are a little bit too enthusiastic and don't deliver with plans. I have plans. I have experience. I have experience with people that taught me how to put those plans into action, and not only taught me how to do it, but they actually showed me when they did. And I'm prepared to go there and follow through with it. I'm excited to do that. It's not just about enthusiasm. It's about results. Because at the end of the day, you look behind me, I live in a 400 square foot apartment. There are a lot of people in this building that live in a crummy little apartment like this. And the reason I live here is not because I want to, it's because I can't afford not to. Because I teach and I work a second job. And there are a lot of people like me struggling. There are a lot of people like that in our region, and they want to champion too. Comcast and PG&E are going to be fine. They want somebody that will fight for them.